Welcome to Travel Devil. I'm your host Clara Francken, and in a world full of mass tourism, we're here to talk about unconventional travel. Let's get into it. Margreen, Margarita, nice to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Clara, for having me.
We are here on Travel Devil. Today we want to talk a little bit more about wildlife, safaris, and adventures, how they can be eco-friendly and green. Margarita Samsonova, you are a GREENfluencer, which is also known as an environmental content creator. You have traveled to more than 70 countries, filmed more than 15 environmental documentaries, and I'm super excited to have you here. We know each other because I was part of your course, The Art of GREENfluencing, by your company, Behind the Greens. So this was my little introduction, but maybe you would like to introduce yourself with your own words.
So I studied zoology, just wildlife and animals, and traveling to connect to animals and just to see them up close is like my biggest passion. That's something that excites me and drives my sense of adventure and exploration. So this is how I came to content creation, basically. I started exploring and volunteering.
Yeah, and I'm hearing a dog on the background. Could you tell me where are you at the moment?
So I am in Kenya and I've been here for 4 months. These doggies are not mine. We're in the Airbnb. How many projects did we film? 4 environmental conservation projects with communities, topics around like plastic pollution, reforestation, and again, like importance of traveling with the purpose. Yeah, the goal is just to raise awareness about alternative, meaningful travel and for people to participate in these events and activities. And yeah, spread the word about good causes. There's so many out there. So meaningless travel was just like something that I was so against, because this is something that I was doing in the past when I started like the influencing journey. So I was doing a lot of what I call basic traveling. So like really looking on Instagram, like the hot destinations and going there, taking pictures and posting, like hoping that I would get a lot of likes. Not realizing that over promoting destinations and just not really having a purpose, a cause and a meaning, like why are you going somewhere? It really just doesn't add to things. I felt a lot of shame and guilt for myself for like engaging with these unsustainable practices and whatnot. And this is not something that I resonate with anymore, because like shame and fear, they're not the motivators, they're not the drivers for positive behaviors. So now what Behind the Greens is doing is really solution-focused content, is really positive, is really energizing and uplifting.
Could you give me a roundabout of what Behind the Green is about and what it is?
So Behind the Greens is environmental media company. So we have Eco Collective is environmental creators. We have about 150 members. We create different engaging environmental campaigns. We work with different brands and agencies like conservation organizations. We create content, we manage social media pages. And the main thing that we do is we have this program that we mentioned before, Mastering the Art of GREENfluencing. Is a 6 weeks training program. It's online. So we bring people together that want to find their voice in environmental activism and storytelling. We have different workshops. We have different speakers that come and talk and educate about content creation and activism and greenwashing and monetizing content and working with brands and just presenting storytelling, like little things. But we're always open to people that feel the passion for environment, people that usually are not sure exactly how they can help. Come find us, and together we will make a difference.
Perfect, yeah. And I'm also happy to be part of it.
Yes, thank you for that. We love you and your creativity and your podcast and desire to spread good messages about exploration and adventure, and specifically talking about how we can do it in a responsible and eco-friendly manner.
Well, you're a greenfluencer. We touched on that subject already, but could you explain what a greenfluencer is for you?
So, a greenfluencer is someone who is trying to use their social media influence to promote environmental activism, to bring solutions to the surface, to engage people on social media in some sort of green activities, challenges. So it's just someone who is involved in green action and green movement, definitely connected with social media, but it doesn't have to be. You can be doing that in real life. Basically, it's climate creator, impact creator, environmental content creator, or I like to call it the greenfluencer.
Greenfluencer.
It's a fun term that I'm trying to popularize. And when we have a cause, when we have a passion, and when we connect our creativity to it, I really think that we can achieve some really great things. I've been an influencer for like 15 years, and it's the last 5 years of my life that I've started doing greenfluencing, and I definitely feel better about going in that direction.
Can I ask you something about that? Because when did your passion for this green adventure start? Like, what was there a turning moment where you saw that what you were doing wasn't helpful for the environment, or was it something you saw which made you rethink your way of traveling and your impact you were having as an influencer in general, moving towards the greenfluencing?
I was just like always pissed off with social media of how perfect everything has to be, you know, and that I remember back in the days, I would edit my photos and I would edit trash out of the photos of my beautiful beach pictures. And because like this was something that everyone was doing, and you're just following that, and you're not even questioning like, why are you doing this, what kind of impact does it have? And like with that, you're just becoming inauthentic, and that's what I became. And I was just promoting some sort of like perfect fake life, losing myself, and really not having any meaning of like, why am I doing this social media thing? And while I was traveling, I was exposed to so many different things, like just really seeing the effects of climate change firsthand in different communities, and mainly plastic pollution, and specifically working with animals. It was like causes like poaching and entanglement of different animals, finding plastic in their stomachs, obviously like crazy pollution in different places that's supposed to be clean. And I was not posting any of that because I was working with tourism boards. I was working with hotels that wanted this like picture perfect lifestyle to promote. Just attract more people to come. But more people to come for what? To pollute, you know, to take advantage. And I was doing that and really hit some sort of like burnout. And I wanted to be more real. So I started just like exposing myself more, like more of my behaviors of what am I doing, and then shining the light on my impact with flying and consuming and all these brands and hotels that I was working with, just trying to give tips of how like I can be more eco-friendly. And this is where it started for me.
You just went from one like a very slow path to in the end like really change everything you were posting in the end, because today I don't see any of these previous kind of pictures on your profile anymore.
Absolutely. It was a slow transition. It was very scary at the beginning, and I lost about 30,000 followers going into this journey because, being like a picture perfect kind of girl, then I started to do a lot of like trash art photography. I would like lay in trash and go to dumpsters, take interviews with people, then post photos of entangled animals and things like that. So there was a lot of like shock value there. And it took about 3 years to fully go into a journey of like environmental activist.
So today we actually want to talk about wildlife safaris and adventures and how this can be made green. Maybe to start getting into the topic, can you also briefly differentiate the wildlife and safaris? Like, can we use those as synonyms? How are you using these terms?
Okay, so a safari is an experience, okay? And currently, it is something that is usually associated with luxury. And safaris are usually offered by hotels and different tour companies, and it usually involves some sort of comfortable experience where you go in the car, there is a guide, and they drive you through places, and you see wildlife, and you usually get very close, which is something that I'm not a very fan of, because the goal of the safari is for tourists to see wildlife up close. A lot of people have phones, so in order for tourists to see the animals and take photos with the phones, take the selfies, you have to come so close. So when you're going on an adventure, when you're going on an expedition, like a wildlife expedition, you would never be guaranteed to see any wildlife, and that is part of your luck, that is part of your experience, that is part of how you're prepared, who you're going with, if you're actually going to be seeing some wildlife or not.
But going on a wildlife, it's still getting into a car and going around, or is this in more close environments?
So I guess it's important just to just touch on the concept of just the wilderness and wildlife, because these days there's just really not that much wild left. Even when we're going to places like 2 years ago, I filmed a documentary in Botswana in Okavango Delta, currently the most untouched place in the world. And even there, the wild and the wildlife goes until there is this fence, because there are fences that separate the communities and the wildlife, okay? So, yeah, it's just this concept of really going to see wildlife. I really don't think that it exists anymore. That's why what I'm trying to promote is conservation tourism opposing to safari tourism, because there you're really part of something bigger, you're part of some sort of research or study, and you can really engage with scientists and conservationists on this experience and to learn the truth, to learn if there is actually wildlife where you're going. This is like a fenced park. When you're staying in the hotel and you're going on the safari, you are shown the big five is usually the animals that the people want to see when they go.
What is a big five?
When a tourist is going on a safari to Africa, this is kind of like a bucket list experience to see the big five. It's lion, leopard, rhino, buffalo, and elephant, right? And the term was created by big game hunters, and these animals are typically the most dangerous and the hardest to hunt on foot. So when like a safari industry is trying to promote like seeing this big five, it's like, why do we need to see in one day the animals that were previously like tried to be hunt? The whole concept is called game drive, and this is where science comes into play. There's no game, it's research.
Yeah, and it should not be possible to see all of these animals on the same day, and there's something wrong already if that's possible, I guess.
Yeah. And not all the places have the big five, and it becomes like a sale point. And we know that there are not that many rhinos that are left in the wild because they're so just critically endangered. Not every reserve can afford to have a rhino because you need like 24-hour security around them and canine unit and all of that. And if you don't have the big five, you're kind of like losing points in your marketing. And that is just so sad because there's so much more to see. For me, the special thing about going seeing wildlife is the small little things, and it's specifically how the tour guides and the safari experts can explain to you about the ecosystem, how every little bug and like small thing goes into another and contributes. It's just a bigger experience.
Mm-hmm. And so in a conservation park, that's in a certain way then similar, maybe bigger than a safari, but then the animals, are they rescued animals, or is this like more like a kind of a rescued territory to make sure that the animals there are safer? What can I imagine?
Yeah. So pretty much every national park is a protected territory. Every conservation park and center is the same. So there are like different rules and regulations and different research programs and projects that are happening there, right? So we can engage with these places if we know about where to go. There are some, let's say, hotels that have very big territory around them, and they basically trade animals. They buy animals, they bring them to this territory, and they can create a story that I don't know, this animal was rescued and whatnot, but that might not necessarily be the case.
I want to go a little bit deeper into that before diving into like possible solutions, because I'm also really interested in like what can we look for, what are green flags and red flags, but let's keep that for a little bit later. Can you also explain what the challenges are for like the local communities and for the ecosystems?
It's one of the biggest problems in Okavango Delta, right? Is that the safari tourism is very expensive there, and the hotels are popping up, and they're offering these extremely expensive experiences, and they're building fences, more fences, so animals can be closer, so you don't have to drive for hours, and you don't have to upset tourists, going for a day of a safari not seeing anything. So you build fences around your hotel, kind of put animals in there, and if you can go on an experience, take nice photos, come back, and all of that. But this is not real. And the experience that I was engaged with African conservation experience, very basic like accommodation. Basically, you're camping, you're living in a tent, is unfenced. And every morning at 6 o'clock, you're going out on like a research drive with the guide, and you absolutely have no idea what you're going to see. Usually you see nothing. That's why you have to go for like a week, 2 weeks, and you're just collecting data of all the things that you are able to find. And that helps just to see how many animals do we have in this area, and how many animals are actually already fenced with these hotels,
Of course, it has an impact on the animals which we talked about, but it must also impact just like local community or the ecosystem more broader.
The thing is that when we are engaged in like a luxury safari experience, the tour guides are usually not giving the honest information, because when you're paying so much money and you are on your luxury safari holiday, you don't want to know about the truth about biodiversity loss, and that maybe this animal is like the last animal that you're going to see of these species. So you're usually given the information just about facts, just like some fun facts. So it's not necessarily educational. So the tour guides that are spending years learning about the wildlife and biodiversity loss crisis, they're not able to use their degrees and knowledge to actually help, because tourists are not ready to receive this information.
Are they not allowed to speak up about these themes?
It's just a general practice, like people, they just don't want to receive it. They don't want to receive it. They want to receive fun facts, who is the biggest animal, who is the fastest animal, and things like that, They don't want to receive information about the research because it's too heavy on their holiday. They want to drink champagne and enjoy and things like that. I just don't think that many people in Western world know that you can engage in conservation tourism. A lot of people think that, well, I don't have any experience. Why would anyone take me, join like a researcher? But it is now becoming possible, because research and scientific organizations in these areas, they need support. They're usually never financed by government, so their only way to receive funding is to offer experiences to tourists.
I was going to ask a little bit more about that as well, because when we're talking about the challenges, we also have to think about the fact that, as you said, a lot of people pay a lot of money to go see these animals. But I'm wondering, how is the business plan of a safari? What does it look like? And how is it compared to a conservational park?
So, see, safaris are usually offered by tour companies or hotels. National parks charge the entry fee. So if you are a hotel, if you are a company, you would just pay like a fee to enter. And then the rest of the money you take for yourself as like a third party, They do the conservation work with that money themselves in that national park. When you, as a business, as a hotel, as a tour expert or tour company, can be doing this research yourself while still supporting research that is already happening in the national park. So there's like just doubling up on impact, science and these experiences. But the core is really like what is being done with the money that you're paying. And it has to go back to protecting the animals, to helping the communities, and there has to be transparency about where that money is going. And this is something, for example, that is very well explained at the website of African Conservation Experience, like where all the money is going. Because if someone is just selling an experience and taking all the money for themselves, just giving the bare minimum to the national park, yes, you will get that experience and you will have great photos, but the impact is not going to be there.
Yeah. Okay, then let's get into a little bit more of these solutions which exist and what to look out for. I would want to divide them in like green flags and red flags. Like red flags would be things to look out for when you're a tourist which want to see wild animals. What are the criteria to look out for? What you shouldn't do? Maybe just the terminology of safari is like a no-go in general. I don't know. So maybe you could start off by just telling me some red flags over there.
Red flags. If you are seeing selfies, just like selfies with animals, it's just always a red flag. If it's something that is promoted on website and social media, yes, you can have your selfies. I take selfies with wildlife when there is an opportunity. The message always has to be like appreciating from the distance, giving space. They have to be very clear, like how close do they come, and like respect these rules and boundaries, because there's like a lot of companies that would lure cheetahs or leopards to go on top of the safari car, and they would make this like an experience when that is not a wild behavior. That is like trying to domesticate completely wild animal and also putting communities in danger, because now this leopard gonna go and sit on someone else's house and risk its life because someone's just gonna shoot it, you know. So that is definitely a red flag. Probably a red flag would be over promoting the big five, like really going for like, you know, that's going to be the highlight of your experience, like seeing these top 5 animals.
So, what are the big 5 animals you were talking about?
It's lion, leopard, rhino, buffalo, and elephant, right? And the term was created by big game hunters, and these animals are typically the most dangerous and the hardest to hunt on foot. So when like a safari industry is trying to promote like seeing this big five, it's like, why do we need to see in one day the animals that were previously like tried to be hunt before, and why is the whole concept called game drive?
Yeah, and it should not be possible to see all of these animals on the same day, and there's something wrong already if that's possible, I guess.
Yeah. The experience has to be just being there, understanding ecosystem, understanding the small things and how they all connect together. Yeah, how can you guarantee that there is this big five there, that we're gonna see it in 6 hours of the safari? That means that the park is small, that means that you brought them in, all of these things. Then, yeah, what social media is all about. If there is no impact, if there is no information about how this project or how this organization or this experience is benefiting a local community, that has to be first. That actually has to be before the wildlife, because we cannot protect wildlife and ecosystems unless we engage people, give them jobs. So that has to be first. Helping communities, doing research.
For the red flags we're talking about as well, are there some specific words we should look out for? I know I was thinking about just the general word of safari, like I was saying previously. Is that a word that should just generally be avoided? Is there something like ethical safari?
No, for sure not. Like this whole industry is changing and it's very new, it's very recent, you know, this like research safaris or conservation, volunteerism, like it's still very new. So yeah, people would not be able to attract that many people if they just remove safari completely from their like, you know, marketing. So that is not the word that we should be afraid of. Yeah, it's mainly the image. It's mainly the message of why this company or this hotel wants people to join these safaris.
Okay, and can we also talk about green flags? What should we look out for when we want to have a good experience which has a positive impact?
Yes, green flags. Well, for sure, eco-friendly focus of your whole experience, because you would usually be offered like a lunch to go, and it can be triple wrapped in plastic and things like that. Education. Some of these companies, they offer their own like tour guide trainings, and they are creating jobs basically in the area. And for me, that is probably the biggest green flag, because a lot of people in these areas, they basically have a choice to become either a poacher, right, or a wildlife protector.
What is a poacher?
Killing an animal, not necessarily killing, but getting and selling parts of animals that can be profitable. So rhino poaching specifically is done for the rhino horn, and that is a big crisis. I actually filmed 2 documentaries just specifically about this topic, because a gram of rhino horn is more expensive than gold, and a gram of gold that is being sold to Asian countries, and for the beliefs that it has some medicinal properties and values, and there's no scientific proof to that. Basically, people hunt, poach these animals and remove parts of their body. In this case, literally half of the rhino face, because the horn goes like inside of its face. And they sell it on black market. So it's like an illegal activity. If sometimes hunting can be regulated, poaching is something that is very cruel, very damaging, very illegal. And something that is happening these days a lot.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
So if there is a project, if there is an organization that is providing a different direction for people and shows the importance of protecting, is giving you a degree, that is beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've got the green flags. Do you want to add something?
I would say green flags is always someone who's open to feedback as well. So it's just people that are there to provide these meaningful experiences, and they want to learn and they want to collaborate, and they want to find solutions. So yeah, it's just another piece of advice for sure, is to always give your feedback with any experiences that connected with wildlife, be that safari, or you are visiting like a zoo or some sort of like experience with wildlife, and like you just feel that something is not right. Maybe you don't have the degree and the background to judge it, but still, if you have this feeling that like, I don't think that the animal enjoyed that interaction. Like, we always have to think about animals.
Yeah.
Giving that feedback and like seeing if people are open to it, that is always a green flag. If they respond, if you leave a feedback on TripAdvisor and they're like, oh, like, thank you so much, we're gonna improve that, that is a green flag. If they ignore, if they don't respond, they're there to make monies, and that's it.
Yeah. That is interesting, actually, because I was talking to my boyfriend about visiting wildlife here in Germany, in Leipzig. There's also a lot of wild parks and zoos as well. But then the wildlife parks, they are animals who are local, who live in semi-wilderness. And most of the animals, they have quite a lot of space. It's of course still like kind of like a zoo. You can walk around it and stuff like that. And you don't have to pay to enter. So it's just like free. People go there on Sunday with their families. But then when we were walking around there, we saw birds. And the birds were in little cages and like owls, which, I mean, that hurt the most for me, because I was thinking like at least all the other animals, they can still run around. They have like a big field. I cannot even see them at the back of the field when I'm walking. But then these little birds, in order for us to see them, they are in cages which are smaller than my bedroom, even smaller than the half of my bedroom. They couldn't even fly or spread their wings to fly to a certain place. And I thought it was very terrible. And I had to talk about this with another friend, and they told me that they already talked to this organization. They sent an email to give their feedback, and that basically the response was, yeah, but the animals have to be seen somehow. Yeah, so I was confused about what I should do, if I should also send my feedback, or if the idea is maybe just, well, not go there anymore.
Yeah, I would definitely talk to someone like directly in the place, because sometimes not necessarily if the animal is in the cage is a red flag, because a lot of national parks and just different organizations, they engage in rescue missions as well. So maybe these animals are recovering, maybe they cannot fly, all of that. So when we are with like a tour guide, we can ask these questions and see like what actually is happening. If that was not possible, and let's say you send that email and their response was also kind of weird, there's an organization that is called sightings, that is basically responsible for like animal welfare in Europe. It's like an association. So going there, but before, just TripAdvisor, honestly, I feel that for all the wildlife and animal places, it's still kind of like a number one place for reviews. Is definitely something that I look at before I visit places. Like on Instagram, you can also kind of like get the vibe of what kind of place is it. If people can touch or take selfies with animals, that's not the vibe. But usually you cannot really get like the text, because it's more pictures. On TripAdvisor, if you would just explain that situation and you would kind of like show what the response was, at least you did your part. You kind of like exposed that story. You don't know what happened, but you put it out there, like that truth. I think it's important. It's definitely something that I've done in the past. I've also gotten some not very good feedback about my feedback, and just putting it out there for people to see, well, this is what I said and this is what they responded. If you think that that's cool and you still want to visit, okay. But I think some people would not appreciate that and they would not visit after, having their own opinion on that conversation.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And talking a little bit more about experiences and good and bad experiences, could you talk about one maybe more bad experience you ever had while you were volunteering with wildlife or safaris? Could you share a story?
Yeah, that was definitely before I studied in university, so I had absolutely no understanding about just wildlife in general and also about this industry. I just wanted to experience working with animals first before I went to study it. And my first volunteering experience was in Thailand. I was working in the safari park, and I was 19. I was just very excited to go. I just saw tons of photos of animals and people being very close to them. And when I got there, I was there for 2 months, and it's really shocking for me to look back at it and to admit that it took me a month to understand what exactly was happening there, and another month of being I really don't like it, what should I do, what should I say, not actually saying anything. And then only 2 years later, when I started working for another organization, basically what was happening, they were tigers. They were tigers that were chained and offered for photo opportunities. There were leopards that were kept in cages and were fed rice. There were monkeys that were also all caged, and they were going in a safari experience. So their idea was that you can drive through it but still see animals in cages. And they started accepting international volunteers because they just learned that international volunteers are ready to pay money, to help. So getting there, and there were some stories about that these animals were rescued and they were tortured before, and I really had this feeling, and these animals were from ex circuses and whatever, and I really had this feeling for a month, what if I'm actually making a difference here? I don't know, at the end of the day, it's been maybe 10 years since I was there, and Right now, 10 years past, all these animals are out of cages and they are living in the safari park. So they did attract a lot of people and volunteers to change that situation, but it was a journey. When I was there specifically, like the thing that was just like, oh my God, like this is not good. They were first of all getting a lot of babies, a lot of like tiger and leopard babies. And then, yeah, tourists could feed them and then they would grow up and they would go somewhere and they would not tell us where they're going. Basically, they were like literally either sold for private collections in Asia, or honestly, they would be killed for body parts and for medicine. And it arrived. The story was that like it was abandoned by the mother, so we were taking care of it and we loved it. And then like a few months in, it started to grow bigger, started to get angrier, and the claws were so sharp and big. So the owner said that like tomorrow the baby is going through this like declawing procedure. Basically, they're gonna rip out the claws out of the baby bear's paws. And like that was explained to us that it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good for us because we would be able to help this baby bear more, and the tourists, they would be able to come and appreciate wildlife and all of these things, you know. And me and all the rest of the volunteers, like we had like a freaking protest there and boycott, and that was the moment when I was like, that was like a month in. It was it was just basically like a tourist toy, and I left from that place before my time, and this is when I really decided that like I need to study this thing. I need to study animal conservation to really understand. My heart felt that it wasn't right, but people were telling me that it was, and I didn't have my opinion because I didn't have experience. So yeah, that was definitely a very interesting experience. That's how my whole journey started, with that bad experience.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But I mean, even listening to your story, my stomach is turning. That's terrible. That's like really abuse of animals. I mean, that's wow. And I guess they can just sell it in a way that they want to sell it. But it is good that there were international volunteers being there and telling that they're not okay with it, even if at the end it happened. People were protesting, people were maybe spreading awareness from it. Maybe volunteers went like left the place, which was also a sign for the owner, I guess. But in the end, all of these volunteers probably also paid to go there. So they also used that money to take away the claws of the baby bear.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That makes one really angry. And I'm happy to hear that there's better, like that it's changed to the better now. But I'm sure there's still many places where these things do happen, but I hope less and less.
That is a very sad thing because, well, in tourism is a pretty good and profitable model in some places. And there's a difference between like a zoo or just a private animal collection when I am rich and I want to have animals around me versus I have a goal of helping the wild, you know, and my goal is to get these animals in very short period of time, give my all, do my best to help them to release them back into the wild, and also make sure that the wild is still there. And I want to put all the money that I make there, so there's more trees and less fences and they can be free, and we just leave them be, you know. It's two very different models, and I think one of them is coming from like very selfish reasons, like a Tiger King, you know, the Tiger King for sure. It's definitely power games when you can be like in charge and in control of some big animal, and you can also make a story that you are actually there to help them and protect them. But you're just making money with them. And in the last 5 years, you have to pay. You always have to pay to volunteer. Like unless you are dedicating like 3-4 months out of your time to the organization, it's always a paid experience. You go for a week, you live there, you pay like your contribution to do the work, you get this experience of being with wildlife. So very tricky, very tricky. Always have to do research before going, like really detailed research. Website, social media, talk to ex-volunteers. Usually on the website, people would put out people that volunteered before. Feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. Like, I love to help people. Like, if you want to sign up with the place, but you have some sort of feeling maybe it's not right, just DM me and let me check it out. Like, honestly, I have so much experience right now. It takes me like 5 minutes to tell if the place is legit or not. And if I have the feeling that it's kind of legit, let's go. 10 more minutes into research and we can understand if there is actually like some sort of like scientific backup of this place, or it's just like a travel experience of volunteerism.
Yeah, I guess it's really good if people can contact you, and I also hope that some of the tips you shared already today could help some people to choose the right places to go. But I'm also wondering, we were talking now about volunteerism. Do you think volunteerism is rising and tourism in general is like going down for wildlife visits?
Yes. Volunteerism is just more meaningful travel, just like this desire that I want to not just travel and have these like fun experiences for myself, but actually I want to give back and I want to learn something. And I really think that it started changing like after the pandemic. I think before that we were, I don't know, a little bit, travel was more available. And I think we were all just collectively a little bit more selfish. Versus now, I think we think more about how to give back. We understand that our money is our vote for the future of tomorrow. So all of these experiences that we engage when we are abroad is like your token. Like, what do you want more of in the world? Do you want more protection, helping communities, more interesting projects that are helping, or just like basic trip, basic tour, supporting these grand tour companies that have enough money but they're not really giving back that much,
I guess it maybe also depends on how much time people have and what age they are at and how much money they have. Because I can imagine that if somebody doesn't really care about spending much money and they don't have so much time, they would prefer to visit a place as a tourist. But then if you have like a little bit more time, a couple of weeks or even months, then you really have the possibility to be a volunteer and dig more like deeper into the space, and you have to pay less, I guess, for that as well, for that experience. Talking a little bit more about the touristical part of it, I also wanted to share a story of when I was in Thailand, and it was with elephants.
Yeah.
I think I was 15 or 16 at the time, and it was with my family. We were going to Thailand, and basically us as kids, we just wanted to see elephants. I think my parents also were thinking like, if you go into Thailand, one of the things you do is see animals and ride on animals. And so I was a little bit conflicted on that part, I think, if I remember it correctly, ahead of time already, but I was also really excited about riding an animal. And when we arrived there, we saw they were using like metal hooks. Like the people they were sitting kind of in the neck of the animal. And then there was a saddle. I wouldn't really call it a saddle, but some kind of saddle on the back of the elephant. And so there would basically be a chain around the neck, I think. And then a person would be sitting on the elephant with a hook, a metal hook, and then they would, if the animal would not listen, but like smash the hook into their skin. And I found it pretty scary when we were there. But also, people were like smiling. The people working there were really like making it not look like something very big. I even remember my parents, when they were looking for a place, they were actually looking also for a place where it was more ethical. Although I'm not even sure if that exists, like ethical ethically riding on a wild animal. I don't know. But I wanted to hear your take on that.
Yeah, just like riding animals is, I don't know, like it's just unnecessary for us, you know, and just an experience itself. I rode an elephant as well in Thailand, and not proud of it. Also didn't understand what was happening, like didn't have the education and awareness. But you know, like after, like during this experience or after this experience, like you just know, you just have this feeling, you just have to connect with it. Like, ew, it's not right, you know? And then if you have this feeling, like do something about it. Like either read or spread the word or give feedback or say something. It's very, very important because this is how we change. Just overall, like riding horses or donkeys or elephants or anything, when we're tourists, when we're visiting countries in Morocco, in Greece, in anything, in carriages, like why? Why? There's always some sort of level of abuse, especially if it's in the city, you know? They have the things covered and the poop bags on there, they look miserable. Why would we go on them? If it's in the wild, like horse riding, yeah, these animals have been like domesticated for like thousands of years, so I understand that. Elephants, ridden for us, absolutely, there's no cultural connection, there's nothing. Like these animals have been used and ridden as a means of transportation or helping like carry heavy loads or build houses or whatever. That has been historically part in that culture. Okay, let them do it. Like if you have your elephant and you take care of it and this is how you want to, you know, interact with it, okay, cool. But for us as a tourist experience, like it's just not the vibe. But it also goes further now because we went from like elephant riding to elephant bathing, and now that is supposed to be like a more ethical experience, but still it's not. In places like Sri Lanka now, there are like so many organizations that would tell you that these animals have been tortured in the past and now they're living a happy life and you can go and bath them. These elephants, they don't want to go bath twice a day with hundreds of tourists in the same river. They're still being beaten up and chained in between these bathing experiences. This is nothing ethical about it, you know, but it has shifted. Okay, we don't go on them, we're around them, we bath them, you know, and like that's supposed to be nicer. And yes, in theory it's a little bit nicer, but like we should not be that connected to wildlife, and this is why the wildlife is wild. Like instead, go see them in the national park when there might be chance that you're not gonna see them. And if you will see them, you gotta shit your pants because that has been so lucky, because you know how many elephants actually are left in the wild and you are so blessed to actually experience them there. And how to find these experiences, yeah, it's just Googling like science, conservation, research, or like if you want to see the specific animal, let's say you want to see an elephant in Sri Lanka, then go find an educational organization. You would put like education, conservation, elephant, Sri Lanka, tourism, like participate as a tourism. And you will go directly to this organization whose goal and core is to protect elephants in the wild. And perhaps they offer some side experiences where you can join their team. So the goal is conservation, protection, study of these animals, not how can we make money from tourists. We have these animals, so how can we like do it together? This is red flag for sure.
Yeah. So like a better activity, going back in the years for parents with 3 kids who want to see beautiful, cute elephants would be the parents telling their kids, you know, animals are not meant to be ridden on, wild animals, and we could go see them if we go to a conservation park, but it might not be possible to see them at all, depending on the day. a talk that a parent would need to have as well with their kids, but then everybody needs to be educated, I guess. Like,
Yes, and that is truth. Like if we want to be blindfolded and experience the world and have these almost like fake experiences when people make it seem that everything is okay, that is one thing. But we have to understand that we're getting to the point in this world where things are not okay. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with accepting this information and actually seeking to understand that we're losing our animals, we're losing biodiversity, okay? And only by engaging with this truthful information, we can come back home from this travel experience and really think about what can I do to help over there, or what can I do to help over here? Because when we go and we kind of get the experience that, oh, there's plenty of animals because all of them are in this tiny cage like that, and there's no problem. There's plenty of animals. What if everyone's talking about, you know? So then I come home and I just look at photos. Everything is great. I don't feel anyhow connected to the cause. I don't feel that I need to do something. But we all have to do our part, because the situation on the planet is not that glamorous, you know, and we have to be okay to understand the truth.
yeah. So before rounding up, because we are getting to the end of the podcast, I also wanted to end the part where we're sharing stories on a positive note. Do you have like a small fun story which was a very nice experience you had with wildlife and which was ethically made or ethically experienced that you can share with us?
There's so many. Oh my God, there's so many. I don't know. For some reason, like Cape Town comes to mind. There's just so much wildlife, first of all, and so many different experiences where you can like interact with wildlife, but it's done by conservation organizations. So the fun experience I engaged with was swimming with seals in Cape Town. That was just absolutely magnificent, even though it was like in super cold water. Like one thing about Cape Town is like, why is your water so cold? So many amazing things, but water, damn. Yeah, it's just being out there in the water with them, and they're just so playful. And that really happens in the wild. Like in the water, they don't feed them with anything because they don't need you, and it's really this species that's super playful. So they really come to you, they look at your face, they swim around you, and yeah, they have their own like breeding habits. So they come to this island that's like specific time, and they really don't mind you because it's done in a small group. It's not like hundreds of people that come there and like really disturb them. It's maybe like a little group of 10 people, and everyone is spread apart, and you sit in one place and you just wait for them to approach you and to interact with you, and they swim so fast. And yeah, dolphins as well is one of the most beautiful experiences. And this is actually how I started this journey, was seeing dolphins in the wild in Alaska. That's something just that clicked my passion. I was like, wow, what can I do with my life to just see more dolphins? What other wildlife is there? Because I was born in Latvia. In Latvia, we don't have any exciting animals. So I was like, okay, dolphins, never seen that thing before. Like, how can I see more of these exciting animals? And yeah, swimming with dolphins can be done in the wild and ethically as well, but in very small groups and in places where, you know, their breeding patterns have been studied. So this is the place that they come for either sleeping or feeding. And, you know, dolphins, they sleep with half of their brain off at each time. They kind of like rotate. So they sleep with one eye open. So when they are sleeping, they're just like swimming in predictable patterns. So if you drop some people in the water and you stay still and some dolphins like swim around you, that can be done, but for that we need to study this behavior. We can't chase the dolphins with our speedboat, and then drop 100 people in the water and freak out the dolphins so they would never come back and lose their breeding spot. So all of these activities, they always have to be done knowing the animals first. That's very important. But there's just so many things.
Yeah.
We cannot seek wildlife experiences because they're becoming like more damaging and there is just less wildlife out there. But I love it. So how can I tell other people not to do it when I want to do it? So if we think about research, behavior, and science first, and we really focus on that, we can see wildlife and have great experiences with them.
Okay. And now to end it up, I've got 9 very quick questions that I want to ask you, which you will be able to answer with only 1 or 2 words or 1 sentence.
Okay.
If you're ready, we can go for that.
Let's go.
How old are you now?
I'm 31.
How old were you the first time you traveled to another continent?
Continent. 19.
What's been the longest time you've been away from home?
5 months.
Okay. Would you rather see a lot of places or get to know one really well?
Damn, that's a hard one. So it's just my struggle the whole freaking time. Okay, I'm gonna say one place, yes.
Okay. Would you rather save money on accommodation or pay for a good bed?
I would pay for a good bed, yeah.
What word would you teach a foreigner who wants to learn your language?
Okay, depends which language.
Your mother tongue.
Okay, so Russian. A word.
Дружба.
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 What does it mean?
Friendship.
Friendship. Oh. What can't you travel without?
My camera. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. What's your favorite travel song?
Travel song? Do I have that?
A song that you've been liking very much lately that maybe reminds you of traveling to some place or reminds you of home even when you're traveling. A song that you listen to quite often.
Home is whatever I'm with you. That one comes to mind. You know it?
Take me home. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know the lyrics. And then my last question of this row. Why do you travel?
I travel to experience the world and make a difference.
That's beautiful. Now I wanted to add one more question to the row. Do you have a task or a challenge for somebody who wants to travel more eco-friendly in general?
Mm-hmm. The challenge would be to see how you can engage in your local conservation. So that's the thing. We don't have to go to Africa. We don't have to go to a different continent to have exciting experiences with animals or to contribute in some way. There's so many different projects like in Europe, I don't know, about snails and frogs, and maybe some people think it's boring. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So the challenge would be to find something like that in your area, to find some sort of like local rescue center or little project that is doing studying of wildlife, to reach out to them and to see how you can join. Are you ready for this?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. Then as a closing question, I want to know, where can my listeners find you? Where can they find you? Are there some links you want to share? I will also be able to put them in the show notes.
We just finalized our website, which is super exciting. Behindthegreens.co. This is where you can find all the information basically about what we do as a company and also how to join us as a creator. We have a WhatsApp community where we're like closely interacting with people, and we have like monthly calls that you can join. You can just get our vibe and some sense of inspiration and motivation. The course is starting on 19th of August, and you can join also on the website. There is a form that you can fill in, and we'll reach out to you to talk about it. Then social medias, Margreen_s, basically on every social media that is out there: Instagram, Threads, Facebook, YouTube, everything. And then for Behind the Greens, we also have Instagram and TikTok and Threads and all of these things. So yeah, stick with us. I think we're a fun little community of people that want to create exciting, impactful stories about different projects and ideas that are making a difference. So join us, support us. Engagement is very important.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I was very, very happy to have you. It was very interesting. I learned a lot, and I'm happy that you could share it. And I'm really curious to hear what people think about this episode as well.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Yeah, I really hope that, together we can just like change the narrative of wildlife exploration and just traveling in general. I think just meaningful and responsible traveling, that's what we all need.
This was Travel Devil, brought to you by me, your host, Clara Francken. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to continue the conversation or suggest any future guests, you can go to my Instagram @Clara Francken. Take care, and I will see you next Thursday.